The rain hit the windshield hard enough that the wipers couldn't keep up. I had them on full speed, and still couldn't see more than a truck length ahead. The reefer unit hummed behind me, that constant diesel rattle I'd stopped hearing unless it changed pitch. Interstate 10 stretched east out of Houston, probably. Hard to tell in the dark, with the rain turning everything into smeared headlights and wet asphalt. I'd been living in the cab more than my apartment lately. That was just how it shook out. The Baytown place cost $800 a month, and I slept there maybe 10 nights since July. Didn't make sense, but I kept paying because I needed an address for all the paperwork people kept sending. Mail piled up on the kitchen counter. I pictured it sometimes when I was waiting at loading docks. Just stacks of envelopes I didn't want to open getting taller. My phone sat in the cup holder. The screen lit up every few minutes with notifications I'd already seen. Texts, emails, voicemails, all the same kind of thing. Florence wanted child support. Late child support, technically. I was behind 3 months, and she'd stopped being patient about it somewhere around month 2. Her texts came in clusters, short ones, then longer ones when I didn't answer fast enough. The last one said she'd filed something with the county. I didn't know exactly what that meant, but Barbara Olson did. Barbara was the compliance officer, or case manager, or whatever they called it. She'd left 2 voicemails this week about paperwork I needed to fill out and return. Very specific deadlines. She had that kind of voice that stayed calm and polite while making it clear you were already screwing up. I hadn't called her back yet. Figured I'd need to soon. Joel Mercado from the bank had his own approach. He called once a day, always around 10 in the morning, always the same smooth tone. The truck note was past due. Just wanted to check in, see if we could work something out, explore my options. I knew what the options were. Pay it or lose the truck. Joel didn't say it that way, but that's what it came down to. None of that compared to the voicemail from Nancy Singh. I'd listened to it 4 times now. She was a doctor at the hospital in Galveston. Cooper's doctor, I guess. She didn't waste words. Cooper Howell needed surgery, and they required a deposit before they'd schedule it. $2,500. Had to be paid by Friday. Today was Tuesday. I didn't have $2,500. Didn't have $500. The bank account had maybe $200 in it, and that had to cover fuel to finish this run I was already on. After that, I'd get paid, but the check wouldn't clear for 3 days, and even then, it was only $1,100. The math didn't work no matter how I tried to arrange it. Cooper was family. That was really all there was to it. He'd helped me out more times than I could count, and now he needed help, and I had nothing to give him. That part sat in my chest, kinda heavy. Made it hard to think about anything else. The phone buzzed again. I glanced down. Irene Gibson, Roadrunner Transportation Dispatch. I let it ring twice before I picked up. Yeah. Phoenix. You empty yet? Her voice came through clear, that dispatcher cadence that turned everything into logistics. Dropped in Beaumont an hour ago, headed back. Good. I've got something if you want it. I wanted it. Didn't matter what it was. What's the run? Sealed trailer, Lake Charles to Baton Rouge. Pick up tonight, deliver tomorrow morning, overnight rate. Overnight rate meant time and a half. What's it pay? $900. I said yes before she finished the number. I'll take it. You sure? It's last minute and the weather's bad out there. I'm sure. She paused, probably surprised I didn't ask more questions. All right, I'm sending the details now. Pickups at 2300 at the yard in Lake Charles. Sealed reefer, don't break the seal, straight shot to Baton Rouge. You'll get the address for delivery when you're an hour out. Got it. Phoenix. Yeah? Don't break the seal. They're serious about that. Okay. She hung up. The phone buzzed again immediately. Dispatch details coming through. I didn't look at them yet. $900. That plus the $1,100 I had coming meant $2,000. Still $500 short, but closer. Maybe I could push something else back. The truck note was already late, so another week wouldn't make it worse. Florence would be mad, but she was already mad. Barbara's paperwork could wait. I merged onto the highway that cut south toward Lake Charles. The rain hadn't let up. If anything, it was coming down harder. The trailer swayed a little in the wind, and I eased off the gas. No point rushing when you couldn't see. The fuel gauge sat just under half. That bugged me a little. I'd need to fill up before the pickup, and diesel was running $4 a gallon, $50-$60 easy. The math started running in my head again. 200 in the account minus 60 for fuel left 140. That had to last until Friday when the first check cleared. Then 900 more from this run, probably Monday. Then the 2,000 total still left me 500 short of what Nancy Singh needed by Friday. I could feel the tightness in my shoulders. That familiar weight that had been sitting there for months now, just getting heavier. Losing the truck wasn't an option. I knew that. Without the truck I couldn't work, and without work I couldn't pay anything. Not the child support, not the surgery deposit, not the rent on the apartment I didn't live in. The whole thing collapsed if the truck went away, so the truck note had to get paid eventually. Just not this week. Cooper needed the surgery. Nancy Singh had been clear about that. Not an emergency exactly, but not something you postponed either. And he'd been waiting already. Doing that thing he did where he acted like everything was fine and he didn't want to be a burden. I hated that. He should have called me sooner, but he didn't. And now here we were with a Friday deadline and me driving through a storm trying to figure out which bill I could ignore longest. The highway stretched out empty ahead. Most people had the sense to stay off the roads in weather like this. Just me and a few other trucks, all of us crawling along with our hazards on. I thought about calling Cooper, telling him I was working on it. But I didn't know what I'd say if he asked how. So I didn't call. The windshield fogged up on the inside and I cranked the defroster. The rain hammered the roof of the cab loud enough that I couldn't hear the radio. I'd turned it off somewhere back near Beaumont anyway. Didn't need the noise. Lake Charles was maybe 90 minutes out. Pickup at 2300 gave me time to fuel up and grab something to eat if I wanted. I wasn't hungry, but I probably should eat. That's what I'd been telling myself for the last 6 hours. The phone lit up again. Florence. I let it go to voicemail. $900 for one night's work sounded good until you remembered it still wasn't enough. That was the thing nobody told you about being broke. It wasn't just that you didn't have money. It was that even when you got money, it disappeared before it hit your account. Already spent on things that were past due or coming due or about to be due. You were always behind, always scrambling, always trying to figure out which fire to put out first. I checked the mirrors. Nothing but rain and darkness behind me. The sealed trailer thing was a little weird, but not that weird. Some loads came sealed from the shipper and you weren't supposed to touch them until delivery. Usually high-value stuff or pharmaceuticals or something. Irene had made a point about it, though. Don't break the seal. They're serious about that. Fine. I wouldn't break the seal. 2300 was 11 at night. I'd be driving all night. Deliver in Baton Rouge sometime around dawn, then probably deadhead back to Houston unless Irene had another load. That happened sometimes. Back-to-back runs that kept you out for 3 or 4 days straight. I didn't mind. Sleeping in the cab was free and the miles added up. The fuel gauge dropped another tick. I'd need to stop soon. I did the math one more time. Couldn't help it. 200 minus 60 for fuel, 140 left. Check for 1100 clears Friday, that's 1240 total. 900 from this run clears Monday. That's 2140 total. Surgery deposit needs 2500 by Friday. Short by 360 or short by 760 if the 900 doesn't clear until Monday. My jaw hurt. I'd been clenching it without noticing. There had to be something I could sell. I didn't own anything worth $300 except the truck, and I couldn't sell that. The apartment had some furniture, but it came with the place. My tools, maybe, but I needed those. Clothes weren't worth anything. I could ask someone for money. That thought made my stomach tight. I didn't have anyone to ask. Cooper was the person I usually asked, and he was the one who needed help. Florence wouldn't give me anything. She wanted money from me. I didn't have friends with that kind of cash sitting around. A credit card. That was an option, sort of. Except I'd maxed the one card I had back in April and hadn't been able to pay it down. They'd probably canceled it by now. The rain kept coming. I kept driving. The exit for Sulphur came up on the right, and I took it. There was a truck stop a mile down with cheap diesel. I could eat there too if I decided to. Get a shower maybe, though that cost $12 and I was counting every dollar now. The fuel stop appeared through the rain, bright lights reflecting off the wet pavement. I pulled in and backed the trailer into a spot away from the pumps, then disconnected and drove the cab over to fill up. The pump ran slow. I stood there in the rain watching the numbers climb, doing math I'd already done, coming up with the same answer. Not enough. Still not enough. But I'd take the run anyway. Drive to Lake Charles, pick up the sealed trailer, deliver it to Baton Rouge, take the $900 and figure out the rest later. That was all I had. The address Irene sent brought me to a closed Stuckey's off I-10 about 12 miles west of Lake Charles. I missed the turn the first time. No sign, just an access road that curved back behind a stand of pine trees and disappeared into the dark. I doubled back and took it slow. The road was cracked asphalt, weeds growing through the edges, and it wound through the trees for maybe a quarter mile before opening up into a gravel lot. The Stuckeys sat at the far end, windows boarded, the old sign still up, but the letters gone. Just the frame and some rust. One security light on a pole threw a weak yellow circle across part of the lot. The rest was dark. The trailer was already there, plain white dry van parked under the light. No company logo, no dot number on the side. Just white. The kind of flat white that's been repainted recently enough that it hadn't picked up road grime yet. I could see the lock hanging from the doors, bright steel, new. I pulled up parallel and stopped. Left the engine running and the headlights on. Nobody around. No other trucks, no cars, nothing. The rain had led up to a drizzle, but the wind still pushed through the trees behind the lot. I could hear the security light buzzing. I sat there for maybe 30 seconds. Checked the dispatch details on my phone again. The address matched. Pickup time was 2300 hours and it was 10:58. I was early by 2 minutes, figured I should get under it. I swung wide and lined up, watching the trailer in my mirrors, backed in slow. The fifth wheel clicked home and I set the brake, then climbed out to finish the hookup. The gravel crunched under my boots. Cold out here, maybe mid-50s, and the drizzle got in my collar when I bent to check the kingpin. Locked solid. I connected the airlines and the electrical, tested the glad hands. Everything standard. That's when I saw the envelope. Taped to the side of the kingpin, just a standard white envelope. The kind you'd use for a bill or a letter. It was inside a plastic bag. The tape wrapped around the whole thing to keep it dry. I pulled it loose and straightened up. Under the cab light, I opened it. 2 pieces of paper inside. The delivery sheet was on top. Standard format typed. The name at the top read, Phoenix Howell. Not quite right. Off by a letter each, but close enough that it had to mean me. Nobody else out here. The pickup location matched where I was standing. The delivery address was in Baton Rouge, an industrial park off Airline Highway. No phone number listed. No contact name. Just the address and a note that said delivery window opened at 600 hours. The second piece of paper was smaller, cardstock, perforated at the top like you could tear it off. 5 lines typed, each one numbered. 1. Do not break seal under any circumstances. 2. Do not stop on the Atchafalaya Basin Bridge. 3. If you hear tapping from the trailer, cover the dash clock immediately. 4. If someone radios your company name, do not respond. 5. You may only park at the Exxon in Grosse Tete if a stop is required. I read it twice. The first rule made sense. Sealed load, don't break the seal, standard for high-value freight or pharmaceuticals. Rule 2 was weird but not impossible. Maybe the bridge had construction, or they wanted to avoid inspection stops. Rule 3 didn't make any sense. Rule 4, same thing. Rule 5 was specific enough to be practical, but I didn't know why it mattered. I looked at the trailer again. White, blank, locked. The seal tag hung next to the lock, a numbered plastic strip I could see even from where I stood. Intact. I did a walk around with my flashlight. Tires were good, tread decent, airlines secure. Frame looked clean. No damage, no scrapes, no markings at all. The undercarriage was cleaner than it should have been for a working trailer. No mud, no oil stains, no buildup. The DOT inspection sticker on the front corner was current, dated 2 weeks ago, but the company name field was blank. Just the inspector's signature and the date. I couldn't point to anything illegal, but everything felt intentionally blank. Stripped. The rain picked up again and I climbed back in the cab, tucked the envelope in the visor and released the brake. The Qualcomm screen glowed blue on the dash. I logged the hookup, marked myself en route, and pulled out of the lot. The access road brought me back to I-10, and I merged east. Traffic was light, just a few cars and one other semi maybe half a mile ahead. The road was wet and the spray came up whenever I passed someone. I kept it at 65. Baton Rouge was about 2 hours out. Straight shot, mostly. I'd crossed the Atchafalaya Basin Bridge about halfway. Then it was smaller highway through Grosse Tete and into the city. Easy run if the weather held. I was 10 minutes out from the Stuckies when the Qualcomm lit up. Not a dispatch message. A radio message. The kind that comes through the system when another driver sends a direct ping. The screen showed an unknown unit ID. Just a string of numbers I didn't recognize. The message read, Rule 3 violation logged. I stared at it. Rule 3. If you hear tapping from the trailer, cover the dash clock immediately. I hadn't heard any tapping. Nothing. Just the road noise and the hum of the engine and the rain on the roof. I glanced at the dash clock. It read 11:17, green numbers, same as always. I looked back at the Qualcomm. The message was still there. I didn't know how to respond to an unknown unit, and I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. Typed back, no tapping heard, clock uncovered, no violation. Sent it. Watched the screen. The message showed as delivered, but no response came back. I checked the mirrors. Nobody behind me. The semi ahead was gone. Must have taken an exit. Just me and open road in the rain. Turned the radio off even though it was already off. Rolled the window down an inch and listened. Rain. Tires on wet asphalt. The low rumble of the engine. Wind against the side of the trailer. No tapping. I rolled the window back up and wiped my face. My hands were tight on the wheel. The Qualcomm stayed quiet. I kept waiting for another message, but nothing came through. The clock ticked over to 11:18. The road stretched out in the headlights, flat and black and empty. I didn't know how I could have violated a rule that required me to hear something I hadn't heard. I glanced down at the dash clock. 11:11. That bugged me a little because I'd checked it maybe 30 seconds ago and it was 11:18. The clock didn't run backward. Never had. It was one of those standard green LED displays built into the dash, the kind that came with the truck and had worked fine for 6 years. I looked again, still 11:11. Then it flashed. Just once. The whole display blinked off and back on. Still showing 11:11, but brighter for half a second. I didn't touch anything. It flashed again. My hand wasn't anywhere near the controls. The button to set the clock was a little recessed thing on the side of the display that I hadn't pressed in probably 2 years, not since daylight savings. You had to push it with your fingernail or a pen tip. The clock kept showing 11:11. Steady now. No more flashing. I figured it was some electrical thing. Moisture in the dash from the rain, maybe. Trucks did weird stuff when water got where it shouldn't. I'd had a wiper motor run on its own once after I went through a flood gauge outside Beaumont. I kept my eyes on the road. Empty still. Just wet asphalt stretching ahead into darkness and rain coming down steady on the windshield. The wipers made their rhythm. The engine hummed. The reefer unit on the trailer ran quiet behind me. Then I heard it. Tapping, sharp, rhythmic, inside the cab. I looked around fast. Nothing. Just me and the empty passenger seat and the envelope in the visor and my phone in the cup holder. The tapping came again. 5 quick beats. Pause. 5 more. It sounded like fingernails on plastic. Precise. Deliberate. Coming from somewhere above the radio, maybe inside the dash itself. Tap, 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 tap. I checked the mirrors. Nobody behind me. Nobody beside me. Just my truck and the sealed trailer and the empty highway. Tap, 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 tap. I rolled the window down an inch. Rain noise came in, louder, and the sound of tires on wet pavement. I listened hard. The tapping was inside. Definitely inside. Not from the trailer, not from outside. From the cab itself, right above where the radio sat in the center console. Tap, 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 tap. My hands tightened on the wheel. I looked at the passenger side. Nobody there. I looked at the windshield. Just rain and darkness and the road ahead. The tapping kept going. Same rhythm, same 5 beats. Pause, 5 beats. Then I remembered the rules. Rule 3. Cover the dash clock immediately if tapping is heard from the trailer. Except the tapping wasn't from the trailer. It was from inside the cab. But maybe that was close enough. Maybe the rule meant any tapping. I reached up to the visor with my right hand, keeping my left on the wheel. I pulled the envelope down and opened it while watching the road. The 2 papers slid out. I grabbed the perforated cardstock with the rules printed on it. The tapping continued, steady, patient. I pressed the card over the dash clock with my palm, covering the green 1111 display completely. The tapping stopped, just like that, instant, mid-beat. The silence felt worse than the sound. I kept the card pressed against the clock. My palm was sweating. The cardstock felt thin and flimsy, like it wouldn't hold up if I had to keep it there for long. I counted to 10 in my head. No tapping. Just road noise and rain and the engine and my own breathing. I counted to 20. Still nothing. The silence felt like it was waiting. Like something on the other side of the card had gotten exactly what it wanted and was satisfied now. That's what bothered me. Not that covering the clock stopped the tapping, but that it stopped so fast. So completely. Like whatever made the sound had been waiting for me to do exactly that. I looked around for something to hold the card in place. I couldn't drive another hour and a half with one hand pressing a piece of paper against the dash. There was a roll of electrical tape in the door pocket. I kept it there for quick fixes. I grabbed it with my right hand, awkward, and tore off a piece with my teeth. I pressed the tape across the top edge of the card, sticking it to the dash above the clock. Then another piece across the bottom, then one on each side. The card stayed put. The clock was covered completely. You couldn't see any green light bleeding around the edges. I put both hands back on the wheel. The Qualcomm was quiet. No new messages from the unknown unit. The screen showed my status as en route, same as before. My phone sat in the cup holder, dark. I kept driving. The rain kept falling. Lafayette was maybe 20 minutes ahead. I passed Lafayette just after midnight. The highway curved northeast, and traffic thinned out even more. A couple cars went by in the other direction, headlights bright and gone in seconds. The road was straight and flat and empty. The CB had been quiet since I left Houston. I didn't run it much anymore. Most guys used phones now, or the Qualcomm. The CB was just there, built into the dash under the radio, turned on but with the volume low. Sometimes I'd hear chatter from other drivers or warnings about speed traps. Mostly it was just static. It crackled to life about 10 minutes past Lafayette. Just static at first. Then a voice. "Roadrunner Transportation, this is dispatch. Need a check-in." I looked at the CB. The green transmit light wasn't on. Nobody was keying up, but the voice kept coming through. Roadrunner Transportation, checking status. Please respond. The cadence was familiar. The words sounded like Irene. Same efficiency, same dispatch rhythm. But it was wrong. Irene talked fast, clipped. She didn't waste time between words. This voice had the same tone, the same pitch maybe, but it moved slow, deliberate. Like someone was reading from a script and putting little pauses between each word to make sure they got it right. Roadrunner Transportation, confirm you're 20, over. Rule 4, do not respond if someone radios the company name. I kept my hands on the wheel. I didn't reach for the CB. I didn't say anything. The voice came again. Roadrunner, need confirmation, please key up. It still sounded like Irene, but wrong. Like someone doing an impression. Someone who'd heard her voice and was trying to copy it, but didn't quite have it down. I watched the CB. The transmit light stayed off. The squelch indicator flickered a little, showing a signal coming in, but there was no unit ID. Nothing to show where the transmission originated. Driver, this is Roadrunner Dispatch. Respond, please. The voice was patient, too patient. Irene got irritated when people didn't answer fast. This voice just kept going, steady and calm and wrong. I reached down and turned the volume knob all the way to the left. The voice cut off mid-word. The CB was still on, the power light still green, but I couldn't hear it anymore. I looked at the road, still empty, still dark, still raining. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I glanced down. A text notification lit up the screen. Unknown number. No name. I picked up the phone with my right hand and unlocked it. The text was short. Good. Stay quiet. The bridge will try to trade. RB. I read it twice. RB Ronnie Bradley. The name Irene had mentioned once in passing. Night safety manager at Roadrunner. I'd never met him, never talked to him, didn't have his number. I looked at the unknown number at the top of the text. It wasn't stored in my contacts. Probably never would be. The bridge will try to trade. I didn't know what that meant. Trade what? Trade with who? The Atchafalaya Basin Bridge was maybe 40 minutes ahead. I'd crossed it 100 times. 18 miles of elevated highway over swamp and water. 2 lanes each direction. No exits. No shoulders wide enough to stop. Just bridge and nothing else until you came out the other side. Rule 2. Do not stop on the Atchafalaya Basin Bridge. I put the phone back in the cup holder. The screen went dark after a few seconds. My gut felt heavy. That warning settled in there and didn't move. The bridge will try to trade. Like the bridge was something alive. Something that wanted something from me. I kept driving. The highway stretched ahead into rain and darkness. The card was still taped over the dash clock. The CB was silent. My phone sat in the cup holder with a warning from someone I'd never met. 65 miles per hour, hands at 10 and 2, eyes on the road. The bridge was waiting. The exit for Bro Bridge showed up around 12:40. I wasn't planning to take it. The route stayed straight on Interstate 10 through the basin, no turns until Baton Rouge. But traffic slowed ahead. I eased off the throttle and watched brake lights cluster maybe half a mile out. Not stop and go, just everyone dropping speed at once, bunching together. I checked my mirrors. 2 cars behind me, 1 semi-farther back. Nobody close. The brake lights spread wider as I got nearer. I could see the pattern now. Traffic funneling from 2 lanes into 1. Orange cones lined the right lane, forcing everything left. Flares burned on the shoulder, bright chemical red against the wet asphalt. A sedan sat sideways across the right lane with its hood crumpled and the driver's door hanging open. Another car was angled into the shoulder behind it, hazards blinking. A wreck. Fresh, probably. The flares were still bright. I slowed to 40 and rolled up on it. The semi ahead of me moved into the left lane and kept going, picking up speed once it cleared the cones. The 2 cars behind me did the same. merge left, roll through, get past. But someone was waving. A trooper stood just past the cones on the shoulder, one hand gesturing toward the gravel, the other holding a flashlight. He wore the full setup: campaign hat, rain slick, duty belt. The flashlight beam swept back and forth in a slow arc, pointing at the shoulder, encouraging people to pull over, to stop and give statements maybe, or just to slow down and be careful. I stayed in the left lane. The trooper kept waving. His flashlight swung toward me as I came up alongside the wreck. I glanced right without turning my head much, just enough to see him clearly for a second. The nameplate on his chest read Raymond Simon. I looked at his face. It didn't have one. Not exactly. There was a face there, but it looked smeared. That's the only word I've got for it. Someone took a wet thumb and dragged it across his features before they dried. Eyes, nose, mouth. They were all there, sort of, but blurred together. No edges, no definition. I didn't hit the brakes. I kept my foot steady on the throttle and rolled past at 40, watching him in my peripheral. He didn't move, just stood there with the flashlight aimed at me, waving with the other hand. Slow and steady. Come on over. Pull onto the shoulder. Stop. I didn't stop. The wreck slid past on my right. The crumpled sedan, the car with the hazards, the flares, the cones, Raymond Simon standing in his campaign hat with no face. I checked my mirror. The whole thing collapsed, not slowly. Just gone. The flares blinked out. The cones vanished. The cars disappeared. The trooper was gone. The highway behind me stretched clean and empty, wet and black under the sparse overhead lights. No wreck, no flares, no officer. Just asphalt. I looked again, leaning toward the mirror to make sure. Nothing. The road was empty. The semi that had been behind me was still there, maybe a quarter mile back now. But everything else, the wreck, the scene, all of it, had vanished. I put both hands back on the wheel and kept driving. My heart was going pretty good. Not panic exactly, just fast. I didn't know what I'd seen. A hallucination, maybe. Fatigue does that sometimes on long hauls. Your brain fills in things that aren't there, except I wasn't tired. I'd slept 4 hours that afternoon before leaving Houston. I was fine. The Qualcomm stayed quiet. My phone didn't buzz. I hit the Basin Bridge about 15 minutes later. The road rose ahead of me, lifting off solid ground and climbing onto the elevated span. No transition. Just flat highway through swamp, then suddenly you're on the bridge and there's nothing but black water underneath for the next 18 miles. The rain picked up again as I started the climb, coming down harder, and the wind hit from the left, shoving against the trailer. I dropped to 55. The bridge doesn't have much shoulder. 2 lanes each way, a low concrete barrier between them, and guardrails on the edges. If you go off, you go into the water. That's it. The reefer hummed behind me. The engine pulled steady. The wipers ran on high. I couldn't see much past the guardrails. Just darkness. The swamp was down there somewhere, or open water. I didn't know which. I'd crossed this bridge 100 times, and I'd never looked close enough to tell. The wind gusted again, and the trailer rocked slightly. I corrected, keeping the truck centered in the lane. No other traffic. Nobody ahead. Nobody behind. Just me and the bridge, and the rain. Halfway across, I saw the hazards. Blinking yellow lights on the right shoulder, maybe 300 yards ahead. A car. Small sedan. Dark color. It sat still with the hazards going, pulled as far onto the narrow shoulder as it could get. The guardrail was right there next to it. No room to work, barely room to stand. Someone was outside the car. I saw the figure as I got closer. A person in a yellow rain jacket standing next to the driver's door, waving both arms over their head. The jacket was bright against the dark road and the black water. High visibility yellow. The kind with reflective strips. Florence used to have one just like it. I didn't think that right away. It came a second later, after I'd already seen the jacket and registered the person waving. Then my brain caught up and said, "That's the same jacket Florence wore. Bright yellow reflective strips, hood with a drawstring. She'd bought it at an Academy Sports in Beaumont maybe 3 years ago. I'd been with her. She'd wanted something for walking in the early mornings when it was still dark." My foot twitched toward the brake. I didn't mean for it to. It just did. Automatic response. Someone stranded on the shoulder in the rain, waving for help. You stop. That's what you do. Except I'd just gotten a text that said the bridge would try to trade. I forced my foot back to the throttle, kept it there, kept the pressure steady. The figure kept waving as I came up on it, both arms over the head, frantic, urgent. The jacket whipped in the wind and rain. The hood was up, covering the person's head, but I could see pale hands and the sleeves of the jacket flapping. I was maybe 100 yards out. Rule 2 said don't stop on the bridge. That was clear. No stops. For any reason. 50 yards. The person stepped closer to the road, right up to the edge of the white line, still waving. The yellow jacket filled my headlights. I didn't brake. 20 yards. I started to pass. The hood slipped back. I saw hair, long hair hanging down in wet strips. Not blonde, not any normal color. It looked gray-green, stringy, clumped together in thick strands that didn't move right in the wind. They hung straight down, heavy, like moss. Like the Spanish moss that grows on trees down here, draped over branches in long curtains. The face tilted up toward my window as I rolled past. The mouth moved, no sound, just the lips shaping a word. Phoenix. My first name. She said my first name. I didn't see the eyes. The hair covered them, but the mouth was clear. Pale lips, moving slowly. Phoenix. Then I was past. The cab temperature dropped, not gradually, all at once. It went from warm, maybe 72, 73, to cold enough that I saw my breath fog in front of me. The windshield edges frosted over, not fogged. Actual frost. Ice crystals spreading inward from the corners in thin white webs. I cranked the defroster to full and kept driving. The tapping started again maybe a minute after I cleared the woman in the yellow jacket. Not from the dash this time. From the sleeper wall behind my seat. I turned my head and looked at the narrow curtain that separated the cab from the sleeper berth. Nothing moved. The tapping continued. 5 quick beats, pause, 5 beats, same rhythm as before, coming from the wall itself like someone was on the other side tapping with their knuckles against the metal panel. There was nobody back there. The sleeper was maybe 3 feet deep, just enough space for a thin mattress and a storage compartment. I'd cleared it out 2 weeks ago. Nothing inside except a rolled-up sleeping bag and a plastic bag with spare socks. The tapping stopped. Then something heavy thudded against the inside wall of the trailer. Not a shift, not cargo settling. A deliberate movement that rolled through the entire length of the trailer behind me, metal flexing under weight, suspension rocking slightly as whatever it was moved from one end toward the cab. The sound traveled forward. I felt it through the seat, through the floor, a slow rolling pressure that ended somewhere directly behind the sleeper wall. Then it stopped. I kept both hands on the wheel. My breath was still fogging in front of me and the defroster was running full blast, slowly clearing the frost from the windshield edges. The reefer unit hummed steady behind the cab. The road ahead was empty and wet. I was still on the bridge with maybe 6 or 7 miles left before the East End. The Qualcomm chimed. I looked at the screen. A new message. The unit ID showed Irene's actual dispatch number. The real one I'd seen 100 times on load confirmations and check-in requests. The message read, Phoenix, stop at Basin Bridge, rest area, mile marker 127 to confirm seal integrity, load B4491. Respond with ETA. I read it twice. It looked completely normal. Standard dispatch language, Irene's real unit number, the actual load number from the envelope in the visor. Mile marker 127 was maybe 2 miles ahead on the right shoulder, a small pull-off area with picnic tables that nobody ever used. For maybe 3 or 4 seconds, I wanted to believe it was just work, just Irene checking in on a high-value sealed load, because that's what dispatch does on overnight runs when the shipper is particular about documentation. Then that feeling that it was normal, that I should pull over and respond and confirm the seal and keep everything professional, felt worse than the woman on the shoulder, felt worse than the smeared face on Raymond Simon. Felt like something that wanted me to think it made sense. I didn't respond, didn't touch the Qualcomm, just kept driving and watched the mile marker for 127 appear on my right and slide past in the rain. The Qualcomm chimed again. I didn't look. The CB crackled to life even though the volume knob was still turned all the way down to 0. Static filled the cab, then a voice came through. Not one voice, several. Layered over each other, talking at the same time but offset by half a second so I could hear each one separately if I focused. The first voice said, "Room 214. Cooper's room number at the hospital in Galveston. Second floor, east wing. I'd been there twice in the last month." A second voice, lower and flatter, said, $2,500. Due Friday. The exact amount Nancy Singh had said in her voicemail. Not rounded, not approximate. The specific number. A third voice, softer, almost sad, said, March 9th. The date Florence left. Took her stuff out of the apartment while I was on a run to Laredo. Came back to half-empty closets and a note on the counter that said she'd filed already and I'd be hearing from someone soon. I stared at the CB. The green power light was still on. The volume knob was still turned to 0. The voices kept coming. 3 months behind. Joel Mercado, First Commerce Bank, past due account. Barbara Olson, case manager. 2 voicemails. Deadlines missed. They knew everything. Every name. Every number. Every date I'd been trying not to think about while I drove. Then a new voice came through, clearer than the others, cutting through the layered static. It sounded calm, reasonable. "We can fix it," the voice said. "All of it. The deposit clears tonight. The banknote gets current. Florence gets her support and the county drops the case. You just pull over. Confirm the seal. Let us help." I looked at the shoulder. Nothing there. Just wet asphalt and the low concrete barrier and darkness beyond the guardrail. "Cooper gets his surgery," the voice continued. "You keep the truck. Everything gets handled. You've been working so hard, Phoenix. You've been trying. We see that. We want to help. Just pull over." My foot twitched toward the brake again. I reached up with my right hand and ripped the rule card off the dash where I'd taped it over the clock. The tape tore free and the card came loose, leaving the green 1111 display visible again, still stuck on the same time, still wrong. I pressed the card hard against my palm, folding it slightly, then slammed it back over the clock and held it there with my whole hand flat against the dash. The voices kept going for maybe 5 more seconds. Then they started to fade, not all at once. One by one they dropped out, layering down until only static remained. Then the static shifted into a low mechanical buzz, steady and even, like a dial tone or a server hum. Then that faded too. The CB went silent. I kept my hand on the card for another 10 seconds, then pulled the electrical tape back out of the door pocket and retaped the edges. My hands were shaking enough that the first piece went on crooked. The bridge was ending. I could see the road starting to slope down slightly, the elevated span transitioning back to ground level. Maybe a mile left, maybe less. The engine stumbled. Just once. A hitch in the throttle, a momentary loss of power that made the whole cab jerk forward slightly before the engine caught again and smoothed out. I checked the gauges. Fuel was fine. Oil pressure normal. Coolant temp right where it should be. Nothing wrong. The GPS screen on the dash lit up bright blue, and a new route appeared. A thick purple line diverging from Interstate 10 and curving right onto a frontage road. The automated voice said, "In 0.3 miles, take the exit right onto Frontage Road South. I looked ahead. There was no exit in 0.3 miles, just the bridge ending and the highway continuing straight through low swamp and sparse trees. The GPS updated. Recalculating, in 0.2 miles, take the exit right onto Frontage Road South. Still no exit. I could see the road clearly in my headlights. Straight ahead. No ramp, no turn. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I picked it up. New text. Unknown number. Different from the RB number that had messaged me earlier. The text read, "Seal will break by itself if you miss the next exit. You'll be liable. Pull off now." I looked up. A green exit sign appeared on the right shoulder, maybe 200 yards ahead. Reflective letters bright in my headlights. Frontage Road South 1 mile. I'd crossed this bridge 100 times. There was no exit here. The next exit was Gross Tate, another 8 miles past the bridge end. The GPS repeated, "In 0.1 miles, take the exit right." The sign got closer. The exit ramp appeared behind it, curving down and right into darkness. Fresh asphalt, new paint on the lines. A reflective barrier running along the edge. I kept my hands on the wheel and my foot steady on the throttle, and drove straight past the exit. The sign vanished in my mirror. Just gone. The ramp with it. A sharp crack snapped through the rain, loud enough that I heard it over the engine and the defroster and the wipers. It came from the trailer. The whole unit swayed hard to the left, suspension rocking, weight shifting violently enough that the tractor got pulled sideways. The wheel jerked in my hands and I corrected right, fighting the pull. Both hands locked on the wheel and my boot pressing the throttle to keep momentum and power through the sway. The trailer rocked again, swinging right this time, then back to center. The tires skidded slightly on the wet pavement. I kept the wheel steady and didn't brake. Braking would jackknife me. The bridge ended. The road leveled out. Solid ground underneath again. The trailer settled. The sway stopped. The weight went still. I kept driving. I pulled onto the shoulder about 2 miles past the bridge end. An old way station sat there, closed for probably 10 years, with the booth windows boarded and the ramp cracked down the middle. I cut the engine and grabbed the flashlight from under the seat. The rain had stopped. That was the first thing I noticed when I opened the door. The second was how quiet everything was. No wind. No traffic behind me or ahead. Just the ticking of the cooling engine and my boots hitting wet gravel. I walked back along the trailer with the flashlight beam sweeping the ground, the sides, the undercarriage. Everything looked fine. Tires good. Airline secure. Frame solid. I reached the back doors and aimed the light at the seal. It was intact. The numbered tag hung where it should, looped through the hasp, unbroken. The lock sat below it, heavy steel with the shackle locked down tight. But the lock was wet. Not rain wet, something else. Dark and slick, pooled in the curve where the shackle met the body, dripping down the face in slow lines that didn't move right. Oil drips fast and thin. This stuff moved thick, almost crawling, sliding down the metal and stopping halfway like it changed its mind. I stepped closer and angled the light. The substance didn't reflect. It ate the beam, turned it dull, made the whole lock look softer than it should. I couldn't tell what color it was. Black maybe, or dark red, or something in between that didn't have a name. It didn't smell like anything. That bothered me more than if it had. I was wearing work gloves, thin ones, fabric with rubber grip on the palms. I reached out slow and touched the edge of the lock with my index finger. Just the tip, barely any pressure. The substance moved. Not like liquid spreading, like something noticed. It shifted under my glove, pulled inward toward the point of contact, then pushed back out in a ring. I felt weight, pressure, little points of pressure all at once, dozens of them pinprick focused. Then it burned, not heat. Worse, It went straight through the glove in 2 seconds, through the fabric and rubber like they weren't there, and hit my skin with a cold, sharp sting that turned into fire. I yanked my hand back and shook it hard. The glove was smoking. Actual smoke, thin and gray, rising from a hole the size of a dime that hadn't been there before. The edges curled black and the fabric crumbled when I flexed my fingers. I stripped the glove off and dropped it. It hit the gravel and kept smoking. My finger underneath was red, blistered in a perfect circle, already swelling. I backed up 3 steps. 4. The flashlight beam shook in my hand. The substance on the lock didn't drip, didn't spread, just sat there, pooled and waiting. 2 knocks sounded from inside the trailer. Not random, not something shifting with the weight or settling after the sway. 2 knocks. Deliberate. Spaced. 1, pause, 2. Right behind the doors, maybe a foot from where I stood. A reply. That's what it was. I touched the lock, and something inside knocked back. I turned and walked to the cab. Fast. Didn't run, but didn't take my time either. I climbed in, pulled the door shut, locked it, and sat there breathing hard with the flashlight still in my hand. The rules weren't there to protect me. I knew that now. Figured it clear and cold, sitting in the dark, with my blistered finger throbbing, and the 2 knocks still echoing in my head. The rules were there to make sure whatever was inside that trailer got where it was going. To Baton Rouge. To the industrial park off Airline Highway. To someone waiting at 0600 hours who knew what they'd ordered and what would show up. Don't break the seal. Don't stop on the bridge. Don't answer the radio. Don't look at the clock when it taps. All of it designed to keep me moving. Keep me from pulling over, cutting the lock, opening the doors. Keep the cargo contained and headed east. I was the delivery system. That was it. They didn't care if I made it. They cared if the trailer did. I started the engine. The Exxon in Grosse Tete sat just off the highway, exactly where the rule card said it would be, the only approved stop. I took the exit at 1:40 a.m. and pulled into the lot slow, checking the layout. 2 pumps. Small store with glass front and bright fluorescent inside. Empty parking spaces along the side. 1 car at the far end. Dark sedan. Nobody inside. I backed the truck in along the rear edge of the lot, away from the pumps, with the trailer doors facing the empty field behind the station instead of the store. Took me 3 tries to get the angle right. When I set the brake and killed the engine, I could see the store entrance in my driver's mirror. 1 person inside behind the counter. Young woman, dark hair, wearing a polo shirt with a name tag I couldn't read from here. I sat there a minute. My finger still hurt. I'd wrapped it with electrical tape back at the weigh station, 3 tight loops to keep pressure on the blister. It throbbed every time my pulse beat. I was reaching for the door handle when I saw him, a man in a Roadrunner jacket, walking across the lot from the direction of the dark sedan. Tall, maybe 6 feet, broad shoulders, short hair going gray at the sides. He walked steady and confident, hands in his pockets like he'd been waiting and now his shift started. He stopped about 10 feet from my door and looked up at me through the window. Smiled, not friendly, professional. I rolled the window down halfway. "Phoenix Howell," he said. I didn't answer. "Ronnie Bradley, Night Safety Manager, Roadrunner Transportation." He pulled a badge from his pocket and held it up. Laminated card, photo, company logo. Looked real. "Got a call about your load. Customer complaint came through about 20 minutes ago. Says the reefer temp's been fluctuating. I need to inspect the cargo and confirm the seal's intact." "Seal's fine," I said. "I'm sure it is. But policy says I verify in person when a complaint comes in. You know how it goes." He stepped closer, pulling a clipboard from under his jacket. "Won't take long. Just need you to cut the seal so I can check the temp logs inside and confirm product integrity. Then we reseal it with a new tag and you're back on the road in 15 minutes. 20 tops." I looked past him toward the store. The cashier was restocking a shelf near the back, not paying attention. The lot was still empty except for the sedan and my truck. "No complaint came in," I said. Ronnie tilted his head. "Dispatch called it through to me directly. Load B4491, that's yours, right?" It was. Same number from the envelope. "I'm not cutting the seal," I said. His smile didn't move. "It's policy, Phoenix. Customer complaints require immediate inspection. You don't comply, the load gets flagged, and your contractor status goes under review. I don't make the rules. I just enforce them." I shifted in my seat and caught the reflection in the store glass. Ronnie stood in front of my truck, alone, hands on the clipboard. But in the glass, in the wide window that ran the length of the building, there were 4 shapes standing where he stood. 4 silhouettes, overlapping, slightly offset, like exposures stacked wrong. Same height, same posture, but too many. I looked back at Ronnie directly. One man, solid, real. I looked at the glass again. 4 shapes, flickering at the edges. "I'm not cutting the seal," I said again. Ronnie's smile finally moved, thinned. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe." I pulled the keys from the ignition, opened the door, and stepped down. Ronnie backed up 2 steps but didn't leave. I walked past him toward the store without looking back. My boots crunched on gravel, then hit pavement, then I was pulling the glass door open and stepping into the bright cold of the Exxon. The cashier looked up. Her name tag said Ellen. She was younger than I'd thought, maybe late 20s, with tired eyes and a polite smile that came automatic. "Hey," she said. "Hey." I reached into my pocket, pulled out the rule card, still taped at the edges from where I'd ripped it off the dash, and set it on the counter between us. Ellen looked down at it, looked back up at me. "What's this?" "Evidence," I said. "If something happens." Her smile faded. "If what happens?" The tapping started. Loud. Louder than it had ever been in the cab. 5 beats, pause, 5 beats, coming from outside from the direction of the truck, clear enough that Ellen's eyes went wide and her head turned toward the windows. "What is that?" she said. I didn't answer. I was looking through the glass, past the pumps, at the truck. Ronnie was gone. The clipboard sat on the ground where he'd been standing. The sedan at the far end of the lot was still there, but the driver's door was open now. I hadn't heard it open. The tapping came again. 5 beats. Pause. 5 beats. Ellen stepped back from the counter. "Is that your truck?" "Yeah." "What's in it?" "I don't know." She stared at me, then at the windows. Then she reached under the counter and hit a button I couldn't see. A silent alarm, probably. The kind that goes straight to the parish sheriff without a sound in the store. "I think you should wait outside," she said. Her voice was shaking. "I'm staying here." The tapping got louder. The deputies arrived in 8 minutes. 2 of them. A man and a woman. Both in uniform. Both with hands near their belts when they came through the door. The man was older, maybe 40, with a shaved head and a nameplate that said Mitchell. The woman was younger, late 30s, blonde hair in a tight bun. Nameplate reading Vasquez. "Who called it in?" Mitchell said. Ellen pointed at me. "He brought that card in and said something was going to happen. Then the noise started." Vasquez looked at the rule card still sitting on the counter. She didn't touch it. "What kind of noise?" "Tapping," Ellen said. "From his truck." Mitchell looked at me. "That your rig out back?" "Yeah." "What's in it?" "Sealed load. I don't know." "You don't know what you're hauling?" "It's sealed. I'm not supposed to open it." Vasquez stepped past me toward the windows, looking out at the truck. The tapping had stopped about 3 minutes ago. Everything was quiet now. She keyed her radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Run a commercial plate for me." She read off my truck number. Mitchell stayed on me. Anyone else out here with you? There was, I said. Guy named Ronnie Bradley. Said he was night safety manager for Roadrunner. Wanted me to cut the seal for an inspection. Where is he now? Gone. Gone where? I don't know. He was outside when I came in. Then he wasn't. Vasquez came back from the window. There's a clipboard on the ground by your truck, and a car with the door open, nobody inside. Mitchell looked at her. She nodded toward the door. They both went outside. I stayed in the store with Ellen, who had moved to the far end of the counter and was gripping her phone with both hands. Through the glass, I watched the deputies circle my truck with flashlights, checking the cab, the trailer, the undercarriage. Vasquez stopped at the back doors and aimed her light at the lock. She said something to Mitchell. He came over, looked, then stepped back quick and wiped his hand on his pants even though he hadn't touched anything. They followed something on the ground, footprints probably, wet prints crossing from where Ronnie had been standing toward the trailer. I watched their lights track the path, slow and careful, until they stopped at the rear passenger side tandem. The prints ended there, right at the wheel. Vasquez crouched down, looking under the trailer. Mitchell circled around the other side. They met back at the footprints and stood there talking, both of them looking at the trailer like it had moved when they weren't watching. The trailer lurched. I saw it from inside the store. A hard jerk to the left, rocking on the suspension, enough that the whole frame shifted and the tires squeaked on the pavement. Mitchell and Vasquez both jumped back, hands on their guns now, lights aimed at the doors. The trailer rocked again, right, then left, then a full thrash that shook the whole rig and made the glad hands rattle. The tapping came back, not 5 beats anymore, but constant, hammering from inside, dozens of points all at once like fists on metal. The seal snapped. I heard it from inside the store. A sharp crack, metal on metal, and the numbered tag fell to the pavement in 2 pieces. The lock stayed shut, but the seal was gone. The doors didn't open, but something inside pushed, and the left door bowed outward 1/2 inch, then slammed back flat. Black sludge poured out from the gap at the bottom. It came fast, thick and steaming, spreading across the pavement in a dark pool that moved wrong, too slow at the edges and too fast in the center. It didn't follow the grade. It spread even, in a perfect circle, like it was choosing where to go. Vasquez keyed her radio. "Dispatch, Unit 12. We need fire and hazmat to the Exxon on Highway 190. Immediate response. Unknown substance, leaking from a commercial trailer." I didn't wait for the rest. I ran, out the door, across the lot, past the deputies who were backing away from the spreading pool. I went straight to the cab, yanked the door open, climbed in, started the engine. Mitchell was yelling something, but I didn't hear it. I dropped it in gear, released the brake, and hit the throttle. The truck lurched forward. The hitch held for 2 seconds. Then the pin sheared with a sound like a gunshot, and the glad hands ripped free, airlines whipping back and sparking against the pavement. The tractor came loose, and I kept going, engine roaring, leaving the trailer behind in the Exxon lot with the sludge still pouring out and the deputies yelling into their radios. I didn't look back. By dawn, I was in Baton Rouge. I parked the tractor in a truck stop off Airline Highway, 3 miles from where the delivery address was supposed to be, and called the breakdown line. Not Irene, not dispatch. The automated system. I punched in my unit number, the load number, and selected mechanical failure from the menu. Kingpin shear, airline damage, trailer dropped at last known location. I left the Exxon address and hung up. Then I waited. The sun came up orange and hazy over the refinery stacks to the east. Traffic picked up on the highway. I sat in the cab with the engine off and the windows cracked, watching trucks come and go, listening to the CB chatter about traffic and scales and fuel prices. My phone didn't ring. The Qualcomm didn't chime. Nobody came looking. At noon, my phone buzzed. A notification from the bank app. Deposit received $900 from Roadrunner Transportation with the memo line reading, "Contract completion, load B4491. They paid me. Like I'd delivered it. Like the job was done. I stared at the screen until it went dark. Then I opened the hospital billing site and logged in. The payment went through in 90 seconds. I sent the full $900 to the account number Nancy Singh had included in her voicemail, with Cooper's name and the surgery deposit reference in the notes field. The confirmation page loaded. Transaction successful. Remaining balance, $1,600 due by Friday. I still didn't have it all, but I had $900 more than I did yesterday. I called the hospital, waited through the menu, got transferred twice. Finally, a woman answered. "Billing office, this is Chloe." "This is Phoenix Howell. I just sent $900 for Cooper Howell's surgery deposit. I need to confirm it went through." Keys clicking. A pause. "Yes, I see it here. Posted about 2 minutes ago. That brings the deposit to $900 of the required $2,500. The balance is $1,600. Due by end of business Friday for the Monday surgery slot." "I'll have it," I said. "Okay. We'll send a confirmation email to the address on file. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "No, thanks." I hung up, sat there in the truck stop parking lot with the sun climbing higher and the temperature rising and the air starting to smell like diesel and asphalt. Cooper's surgery was going forward. That was the part that mattered. I still had to find $1,600 more in 3 days, but $900 was a start. The check for $1,100 would clear tomorrow if it came on time. That'd be $2,000 total. I'd figure out the last $500, sell something, borrow it, skip another payment somewhere else. I'd figure it out. I got back on the interstate around 2 in the afternoon, headed west toward Houston. Traffic was light. The sky was clear. The reefer unit was gone, left behind with the trailer, so the tractor ran quiet. Just the engine and the road. My phone rang twice before I hit the Texas line. Florence first. I let it go to voicemail. Then Joel Mercado from the bank. I let that one go too. Barbara Olson didn't call. Maybe she would tomorrow. Maybe the county paperwork could wait another week. Maybe it couldn't. I didn't know yet. What I knew was this. I didn't deliver what was in that trailer. I took the job. I hooked up. I followed the rules long enough to get past the bridge and the voices and the fake exit and the thing in the yellow jacket. I made it to Gross Tet, and then I stopped. I didn't cut the seal. I didn't open the doors. I didn't let Ronnie Bradley, or whatever was wearing his name and jacket, inspect anything. I walked away. I let the hitch shear. I left it there, leaking and thrashing in a gas station parking lot 20 miles short of Baton Rouge, and I drove off. They still paid me. That was the part I kept coming back to. They paid me like I'd finished. Like it didn't matter that the trailer never reached the industrial park off Airline Highway. Like the job was always just to get it close enough. Or maybe they paid me to keep me quiet, to make sure I didn't ask questions or call the state police or tell anyone what I saw. I didn't know. Probably wouldn't ever know. But I knew I didn't deliver it. Whatever it was, whoever was waiting, they didn't get it from me. That was enough. I merged onto I-10 West and kept driving. The sun was behind me now, still high, still bright. Houston was 3 hours out. The debt collectors would call again tomorrow. Florence would keep texting. The county case would keep moving. The truck note was still past due. But Cooper's surgery was paid for. Most of it anyway. And I was still driving. That was it. That was all I had. I figured it'd be enough to get me home.